There is almost 5 years of technological difference between these two cameras. How much has they really evolved in all those years, and how do they stack up to each other in a side-by-side comparison? The GoPro 5. Released almost 6 years ago, this camera can shoot in 4K with a maximum of 30 frames per second or 2.7K in 60 frames per second. And the highest frame rate you will get is 120 frames per second in 1080p. And it takes pictures with 12 megapixels. Almost 5 years later, the GoPro 10. This camera shoots at 5.3K at 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second in 4K and a maximum of 240 frames per second in 2.7K. And the pixels in the photos are almost doubled to 23 megapixels. But beyond the specs and numbers, how noticeable is the difference between these two cameras in the real practical world? So let's start with image quality. So I'm just going to show you some different comparison shots taken in different lighting situations. The first thing you notice is probably the colors. The 10 is also way more sharp, and I find that the standard or GoPro color profile is a bit over exaggerated, and I prefer the flat profile that you can see here. And if we zoom in a bit, there is noticeable more noise in the image of the 5. This is a late evening shot, and you can again see how much more details the 10 preserve, and the colors seems more accurate. Still, as I said, I find the natural profile is a bit too much, and I would recommend the flat in both cameras. I'll also add that the flat profile is a lot better base to color grade from. So the next category is stabilization. This is a really interesting and important category to me. I hate carrying around gimbals and setting up extra equipment when I'm just out to explore and get some quick captures. Here you can really see an immense difference between the two. I'm actually able to get super smooth footage without the gimbal using the GoPro 10. And it's also worth mentioning that to even use the stabilization on the 5 you have to go down to 2.7K. Next we will compare the photos. The GoPro 5 have the option to shoot in GoPro Color, Flat or RAW, while the 10 shoots in Standard, HDR, Super Photo and RAW. Just note that if you want to shoot in RAW, you can only shoot in wide, which is fine in some cases, but it will cause a fisheye effect. So if you're close to objects and buildings and want straight lines, it is better to shoot in the standard profile and settle with JPEGs. Now, when it comes to time lapses, I don't have much to add other than that the 10 has a cool feature called scheduled capture, where you can set up your camera, choose a specific time of the day or night, and the GoPro will do the job for you at the time you have chosen. And now, the sound of the internal mix in the GoPro 5 and the GoPro 10. What you are hearing now is the sound through the GoPro 10, and let's switch to the 5. As you probably can hear, the sound of the GoPro 5 just sounds a lot more muffled and picks up a lot more noise. So let's switch back to the 10 again. Hopefully you will hear a significant difference. It just sounds a lot more clearer and more present when you speak into this one. Other things that are worth mentioning is the screen. The screen is just a lot more responsive on the 10. Also, the 10 has a front screen where you can see yourself, which is incredibly useful for vlogging or setting up a shot where you are going to be in the frame. And there's also a lot more settings and features to play with on the 10, of course. So there you have it. This was really just a fun comparison to see how much the GoPro has evolved over the years, but also how much more you will get if you are sitting on an older GoPro, like the 5, 6 or 7 and are thinking about an upgrade. So that was about all I had for this one. See you in the next.